You are listening to a story on Little Fox Audio, and I hope you have a wonderful time. I was suddenly pulled straight into a web novel full of reader comments, and my unlucky landing put me in the role of a famously hot-tempered stepmother to a stubborn blonde boy named Ethan. I had barely opened my eyes when I was dragged into a parent-teacher meeting. The homeroom teacher sat there with a face as cold as stone, looking at me with obvious dislike, and speaking in a sharp, condescending tone, as if reading a charge sheet. "You are the guardian of Ethan, right? His grades are whatever, but his discipline is basically non-existent. Just look at that blinding blonde hair. He looks like one of those loitering punks outside the school gate. If he keeps this up, he will become society's trash sooner or later." I froze for a few seconds and stared at the boy's hair because it was so bright it almost reflected light. The only thought that flashed through my mind was that he was definitely handsome, but his sense of style was wildly questionable. Maybe my expression gave me away, because the blonde kid bared his teeth and snapped like he was defending his territory. "Do not even think about making me dye it back to black." I rolled my eyes and replied calmly, "Fine, you do not have to dye it black, but what if you consider switching to a different color that looks cooler?" The kid stiffened. The teacher, who had been standing there with her hands on her hips waiting for me to scold him, immediately darkened when she did not get the nasty scene she wanted. "Guardian of Ethan, I am not joking. A kid like him will be a menace to society in the future." Before I could fire back, a flood of floating comments popped up in my vision. "This teacher clearly has a personal grudge. What school bans dyed hair? Other kids dye theirs too. Just not a neon yellow like this. At worst, it is an image issue. There is no need to humiliate a child. People say she is interested in the boy's dad, but he does not even look at her. So she dumps all her resentment on the kid." I glanced at the teacher again. A wide face, high cheekbones, hair gelled and sharply parted, eyes full of bitterness and ambition. She had to be over 50, yet she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had never been told no. I looked straight at her and said in an icy voice, "Who said I was joking with you? Dyeing hair is a personal preference. On what basis do you call my son society's trash? Did he set the school on fire? Did he bully classmates? Did he steal? Did he cause real trouble? If dyed hair makes someone a menace, then the streets must be full of menaces. You have been teaching for years, and you still judge students by their appearance." The teacher trembled with anger, pointed at me, and threw out a sentence like a hammer. "Like mother, like son. Raise a child like that, and he will be ruined for life." I almost laughed. Maybe I had not proven whether I had ruined him or not. But I knew one thing for sure. A teacher with no professional ethics ruins children faster than anyone. I said it plainly. "Show me the school rule book. If there is a rule that forbids dyed hair, I will sit right here and write an apology statement with him immediately. But if you cannot prove it, then we will go over every insult you threw at my child today." She choked, her face turning red, and in the end, she could only spit out one bitter threat. "Students like Ethan are not welcome at our school." I gave a cold laugh, grabbed my little porcupine-haired boy by the hand, and said, "Come on, kid. This place is too holy for us. If this school hates dyed hair, then we will transfer. His father has more than enough money. He can sponsor any school he wants. Ethan's biological father is Adrian, the man who is my husband on paper, cold as ice, but rich beyond measure. I hate people who take someone's donations and then turn around and insult their child. Adrian poured money into buildings, dorms, a library, and top-tier equipment. And that teacher still had the nerve to call his son society's trash. I could not swallow it. So I transferred Ethan to an elite private school. And I was not the type to let someone run their mouth and walk away. I filed a formal complaint to the principal, and another straight to the education board. I even signed it deliberately as Adrian Carter of the Carter Group. It sounded a bit like throwing power around, but I truly did not want a poisonous teacher like that anywhere near children's futures. When Ethan held his new acceptance notice, he stared at me like he had seen a miracle. "Why did you not yell at me? That is not right. Normally, you would slap me and force me to dye it black." I glanced at him and replied calmly, "It is just hair dye. It is not that serious. If you ever commit arson or murder, then we are far past a slap." Sunlight hit his hair, making it even more blinding, and the longer I looked, the more it felt like a visual disaster. I lowered my voice and tried to negotiate. "But kid, are you sure you cannot switch to another color?" When I saw him hesitate, I pulled out my phone and showed him a bunch of options I had searched up. Smoky brown, silver gray, cool violet, black with a pink sheen, the whole set. He pressed his lips together, clearly tempted, but he still tried to corner me. "Is my current color really that ugly?" The corner of my mouth twitched. In my head, I reminded myself to guide him gently and not crush fragile teenage pride. So I forced a stiff smile and said, "It is not ugly. I just think maybe another color would suit you even better." He instantly brightened, clapped his hands like he had made a huge decision, and declared, "Then I am not changing it." I sighed. "Fine, as long as you are happy." Then I ruffled his hair, half helpless and half indulgent, and accepted my fate. My son's taste was going to stay loud, golden, and impossible to ignore. Ethan really did transfer schools, but his rough, no-filter attitude stayed exactly the same. So when the school called for a parent again, I was not surprised at all. This time, the reason already sounded exhausting. He had gotten into a fight with a classmate. The moment I stepped into the office, I saw a chubby kid shaped like a dumpling, at least 1.5 times Ethan's size, sitting on the floor, rolling around, and screaming like the world was ending. His mouth was huge, but his face was dry, not a single tear in sight. Still, that is how it works. The louder a kid cries, the faster adults rush to take his side. Ethan stood off to the side, silent like someone pressed mute, his face stiff as stone, the kind of silence that makes people assume he must be the guilty one. Right then, the woman beside the chubby kid suddenly charged forward like a rocket, grabbed Ethan, and shrieked, "You are the one who hit my son, aren't you? You are so young, and you already learned violence. Just look at that flashy blonde hair. Anyone can tell you are not a good kid. Today, I will teach you a lesson for your parents." Ethan did not even dodge. He simply let her scratch at his face in front of everyone, like he could not be bothered to explain himself to the world. I walked in and cut her off with a cold voice. A grown woman bullying a child. Is that something to be proud of? Her hand froze for half a beat. I caught her wrist and twisted it slightly the other way, just enough for her to learn what pain really feels like. She immediately screamed like an alarm. "Ow, it hurts. My wrist is going to break." I shoved her stumbling back toward her dumpling son and said, "So now you know what pain is. Funny, when you tried to hit my child, I did not hear you screaming." I glanced at the chubby kid and added, still yelling, "Keep going and you will lose whatever sympathy you are begging for." Behind me, Ethan snorted and laughed. I turned and shot him a glare. "What are you laughing at? You are not safe yet. Someone claws your face, and you stand there like a statue." Ethan instantly swallowed his grin, lowered his head, and went quiet like a wet puppy. I pressed my lips together, lowered my voice and asked, "Talk. What actually happened?" But the woman snatched the chance to speak first, her voice sharp and dramatic. "What happened? This little thug attacked my poor baby. He scratched my son's face." If he scars, how is my child supposed to live? At that exact moment, the floating comments exploded in front of my eyes like a live stream. So shameless. She does wrong and still screams the loudest. Her kids started the bullying, and when they could not win, they played victim. 5 big kids surrounded one skinny kid and still pretended to be the injured party. They did not just isolate him. They mocked him and stabbed at the most painful spot. They said Ethan's stepmom was the kind of woman anyone could climb on and trample. So of course, he finally exploded. Ethan kept his head down and said nothing. The chubby kid kept wailing, but he also stole a glance at me, and there was that smug look of someone who is used to acting like the victim. Then he rolled again and cried, "Mommy, I do not want a scar. I do not want people calling me ugly." I could not take it anymore. I dropped a line so cold the air froze. With a face like yours, even without a scar, no one is going to volunteer to stare. Thank God you are not my kid. If you were, I would have sent you back into your mother's belly for recycling years ago, so you would not be standing here smearing other people. The whole room went silent, like someone cut the power. Everyone stared at me. Even the teacher, who had been standing there like a statue, had to press her lips together to keep from smiling. Since I landed in this world, I decided one rule for myself. If someone treats me with respect, I repay 10 times over. But if someone is shameless, throws tantrums, and bullies others, young or old, I will make them freeze on the spot. The comments screamed in excitement. That was so satisfying. Look at that mother. Her mouth is hanging open. A hot-headed stepmom is rough. But against someone this thick-skinned, only a sharp tongue works. That chubby kid always bullies smaller children. Getting checked like this is overdue. I glanced at the chubby kid. He was so shocked, he forgot to cry. That was when the woman shrieked again. Like parent, like child. No wonder he dares to hit people. The adults are just as uneducated. Before I could answer, Ethan suddenly lunged in front of me. If someone is at fault, blame me. Do not drag in people who did nothing. Watching his blonde head bob in front of me, I felt something tighten in my chest. My kid might be stubborn, but he had more decency than this entire family. The teacher on the side looked like she wanted to disappear. I could tell the other side had backing, which was why they acted so fearless. Fine. I stopped playing nice. I raised my hand and slapped the woman across the face. Sorry, you are right. I am uneducated. The moment I hear someone calling a child an animal, my hand gets itchy. She froze for a second, then started screaming like she had lost her mind. I pulled Ethan behind me and stared at the chubby kid with eyes like ice. Listen, I will give you one chance. Apologize to my son, right now. The chubby kid finally stopped screaming, but he stayed stubborn. I am not apologizing to that broke loser. The comments burst into laughter again. Ethan was from one of the richest families in the city, yet he was called broke because his country bright blonde hair made people assume he was low status. They thought they could start trouble and settle it with money. I wanted to argue, but honestly, that hair really did invite misunderstanding. I turned to the woman clutching her face, eyes wide with hatred. And you, are you going to apologize to my son? She ground her teeth. Do you even know who I am? You and your kid should be the ones kneeling to apologize to me while you still can. I nodded lightly. Good. I like that answer. At least it proves one thing. You do not think you are wrong at all. So any apology from you would only be acting, and the damage is already done. One empty sorry will not erase what happened. The room stayed tense like a pulled wire, and no one was willing to apologize. And the teacher standing nearby only dared to swallow hard, because touching either side would turn her into the next target. So the entire office fell into a suffocating silence. I turned to my kid and spoke like I was reminding him to eat his vegetables. Ethan, tonight when we get home, eat a lot. He stared at me like I had lost my mind, so I curled my lips into a mysterious smile and said, if you want to do something big, you need energy first. Then I asked, and what color burlap sack do you like? His face went even blanker, but he answered obediently, yellow. My mouth twitched when I looked at his blonde hair, because of course he would choose yellow. This kid's loyalty to the color was terrifying. That night, the wind howled, and the darkness felt like the opening scene of an action movie. I pulled Ethan to a quiet little road and gave him quick instructions. When the target shows up, throw the sack on fast, remember. He swallowed and nodded, stiff as a stick. Scared. He nodded, then shook his head, just a little. I leaned in and whispered like I was passing down secret techniques. If anything happens, I will take the blame. You do not need to be afraid. The moment I finished, the target appeared. I signaled, now, sack. Ethan lifted the bag halfway, then locked eyes with the person walking up, and froze solid. Of all people, it was the chubby kid from this morning. Ethan stalled for one beat, and I yanked the sack from his hands, whipped it over the kid's head in one clean motion, and pinned him down with my foot, so he could not wriggle out. Then I turned to Ethan, dead serious. This morning he hit you how? Now, you hit him back exactly the same. Can you do it? Ethan's eyes were stunned at first, but within seconds, they sharpened into determination. I can. The chubby kid's threats turned into begging almost instantly, and I did not soften at all. If school will not teach them, life will. A bully who never tastes consequences is the kind of thing that keeps me awake at night. I asked, feel better yet? Ethan added one more hit and nodded hard. Yeah. I told him to pull the sack off. The kid's face was soaked in snot and tears. Real tears this time, not acting. I crouched down and asked in a voice so friendly it was terrifying. Do you know what you are going to do tomorrow? He shook his head automatically, so I smiled like the nicest homeroom teacher on earth and said, tomorrow you go to your teacher yourself and request a public apology in front of the whole school to my son. Do not try anything funny, or tonight was only the beginning. The kid scrambled away into the dark. Ethan stood there again, like someone hit pause, and he looked at me with pure curiosity. You did that because you were afraid you would teach me wrong, right? And you did not even ask everything first. What if I was the one at fault? He nodded, then added softly, are you not scared it was my fault? I answered honestly, I do not encourage violence, but in special situations you make exceptions. I will ask you just one thing. Did you swing first? He hesitated, then said, yeah, but he insulted you first, he said. I waved my hand to cut him off and said the net beating was not undeserved. And more importantly, a stepmom is still a mom. His mom defended her kid without caring about right or wrong. So why can I not defend you and vent my anger for you? After a long silence, Ethan whispered, thank you, Mom. I looked at his skinny frame and felt my throat tighten. He came from money and lacked for nothing, yet his eyes looked like a child left behind. I could not help asking, when is your missing father finally going to show up? A kid this good, and I cannot understand how he is being raised like this. Ethan pressed his lips together and said, I do not know. And even if he comes back, I will still be the one forced to apologize in the end. Right after he said that, the floating comments erupted, as if speaking for him. He looks rebellious, but he does not know how to protect himself. He gets bullied for ages and never tells an adult. The moment someone provokes him, he swings, and then he hands them the perfect excuse to dump all the blame on him. His father will come in acting righteous and punish him anyway. Hearing that made me both angry and heartbroken. I flicked his forehead lightly to wake him up. How many times do you have to lose before you learn? The one who hits first usually loses. If you cannot solve it yet, you need to endure first, then strike back at the right time. Like tonight. Understand? That way you keep your reputation and still let the anger out. Do not let yourself take the loss. Ethan blinked, then broke into a bright smile. I get it. I locked my tone for the final warning. But if you ever use this as an excuse to bully someone else, your ending will be the same as that chubby kid tonight. No exceptions. And before Ethan's father even returned, a self-proclaimed grand lady stormed right up to our front door, screaming like a hurricane, "Ethan, you useless trash. You go to school and cause trouble until people report you all the way here. You are disgracing the Carter family name. Why do you not just die, like your short-lived mother, and stop being a burden? Come out here. Today I will clean up this garbage for the Carter family." I tried to cover Ethan's ears, but I was too late. He heard every word. I frowned, yet he flashed me a smile like it meant nothing. Voice light in a way that hurt. "It is okay, Mom. I am used to it." My heart clenched. I stared at the woman, genuinely confused. The mother of a titan like Adrian Carter had zero elegance and zero class, only cruelty. And as if reading my thoughts, the comments rushed in with the explanation. She only dares act tough in front of the child. The moment Adrian appears, she shuts up. People fear the strong and bully the weak. She knows even if Ethan tells his father, Adrian will not do anything to her anyway. Even though she was Adrian's mother in name and Ethan's grandmother on paper. The truth was, she had probably wished for that boy to disappear more times than anyone could count. Because if Ethan did not exist, Adrian's fortune would eventually fall straight into the hands of that blood-sucking family to divide and feast on. But Adrian brought the boy home anyway, and even publicly named him the #1 heir, basically planting a giant thorn in the entire family's eye. So the bullying Ethan faced at school was never random. Either adults were pulling strings behind the scenes, or they were quietly approving with their eyes shut. A rotten family like this only wanted Adrian to see the boy as useless, so he would keep ignoring him like he always had. And the rage in my chest rose until it stuck in my throat. Because how could anyone be so shameless, so cruel, to an innocent child, even their own grandson, all for money? And honestly, Adrian was not exactly innocent either, because the truth was, he was not even the biological son of that household. When he was young, the old patriarch once found him starving on the street and gave him a bun. And years later, after Adrian made it big, he returned to repay that kindness. It sounded loyal and noble, but he remembered only the sweetness of that bun and forgot that human greed is a bottomless pit. Outside, insults kept blasting like a fire hose. Ethan said he was used to it, but his shoulders still trembled slightly. I patted his back gently and whispered, "Today I am teaching you one more move. It is called using power to crush power." Then I turned straight to her and smiled with my lips and not my eyes. "Wow, your mouth must have been soaking in salt water for decades, because every word is so salty it makes my ears hurt. Or maybe you have been given too much freedom. So you started thinking you are the queen of the jungle. Or maybe when humans evolved, they forgot to drag you along, so you stopped bothering to act like one. You think you get to curse my son. If he has not thrown you out of this house, you should be on your knees, thanking your ancestors that your family graves are still green. You eat his father's money, live under his father's roof, and then open your mouth to insult his father's child. What? You want to stick the sweet parts on yourself and throw all the stink back onto the people feeding you." She was so furious her makeup cracked and flaked. She pointed at me, stuttering, You shameless woman, how dare you talk to me like that?" Believe it or not, I can make Adrian divorce you. I stayed completely calm and laughed like I was hearing a joke. Oh please, this family fell apart ages ago. Why is there still some ancient leftover standing here polluting the air? You want him to leave me? Do you believe I can make him cut off your charity allowance faster than he could ever leave me? She turned bright red and screamed, "Who do you think you are? You are just a fox who seduces men in bed." I clapped twice. Immediately, a security guard stepped in, bowed respectfully, and said, "Mrs. Carter." I lifted my chin and said, "Someone trespassed into my home and is causing trouble. Call the police. Tell them Adrian Carter's house has been robbed." The guard answered, "Yes, ma'am," pulled out his phone and actually started dialing. She panicked and screamed, "Are you all crazy? Do you even know who I am?" The guard stayed calm, like a machine. Mrs. Carter said, "You are a thief." She screamed even louder, "Traitors! I am the mother of your CEO, Adrian Carter." The guard did not stop. "Sorry, sir has instructed that this house has only 3 owners, him, Mrs. Carter, and the young master." I looked at her with a cold smile and said, "Now do you know who I am?" As I spoke, I casually yanked the emerald necklace off her neck and tossed it in my hand like a toy. And remember to report that I lost a necklace worth tens of thousands of dollars. Now we have the person and we have the evidence. So do not bother denying it. To be honest, at first, I only thought the necklace looked too expensive and too out of place on her. So I tested my luck, and who would have guessed I hit the truth by accident. The comments in my head exploded like fireworks. This is insane. Turns out she stole before. And when Ethan caught her, she shoved him into the water and framed him as careless so he would not expose her. Hearing that made my blood run cold, and my resolve turned even harder. She kept acting tough until the police arrived. The evidence was clear, and they were ready to take her in. Then the so-called grand lady finally snapped. She collapsed to her knees begging, loud mouth, tiny courage. The moment law got involved, she shook like a leaf. I stepped closer, tapped her cheek like I was scolding a child. "From now on, when you see my son, you will address him properly, as young master. Understood?" She nodded so fast, she looked like a pecking chicken. Then I said lightly, "Whether you go to jail or not, depends on whether my young master is willing to settle." The moment she heard that, she suddenly became smart. She turned and knelt in front of Ethan. "Young master, I was wrong. Please give me a chance. I beg you." I rubbed Ethan's blonde hair and whispered, "See, she is not scary at all, right?" Then I asked, "Tonight, does my good boy want to forgive her? Just say the word. The rest is for your father to handle. You only need to tell me whether you want to or not." Ethan lowered his head and stayed silent for a long time. Then he finally looked up at me, his eyes hard and sad at the same time. "Mom, I do not want to forgive her." I nodded once, decisive. "Then we do not forgive her. There is no rule in this world that says someone must be forgiven just because they say sorry. Some wounds cannot be erased by a few desperate pleas. The day she pushed you into the water, she did not stop when you cried for help. I want you to become a good person, but I do not want you to be good in a blind, self-harming way. And maybe because I had been stirring up too many storms lately, the missing father of Ethan finally got forced to come back for real." "What did you put on your head, Ethan?" Adrian stood with his arms crossed, staring at the boy's bright blonde hair with an expression so cold it looked like he wanted to shut the whole scene down. "Dye it back tomorrow." Ethan instantly shrank like a little quail, lips pressed tight, not daring to say a word. When the kid stayed silent, Adrian's irritation rose even higher. "Look around. Do you see any student who looks like you?" That was where I finally snapped. Who decided everyone has to look the same? Are other people's kids your kids? And honestly, looking like you is not exactly easy. Not everyone can pull off being you. So what gives you the right to force your son to melt into the crowd? Different means a freak now. Why not call it personality? Adrian choked for a beat, then switched lanes like a professional arguer. So you think taking my son out to throw a burlap sack over someone and beat them was right? Before I could answer, my little blonde quail suddenly turned into a cannonball and jumped in front of me. I hit him. Punish me if you want. Hit me if you want. I glanced at that blonde hair that had faded a little, and for some reason, it looked slightly less blinding now. Then I turned to Adrian, genuinely incredulous. What century are you living in that you still believe in discipline through hitting? You are a man at the top of your field, and you still play the spare the rod card. He fired back immediately. And you dragging him to beat someone is not the same thing. I spoke slowly, each word like a nail. I did that so he would learn one truth. Debts have to be paid. The other side had parents shielding them. If the two of us do not protect ourselves, what can we do? When it mattered, you were nowhere to be found. Now you show up to lecture us. And this was not Ethan's fault. You listened to other people accuse your son, but did you ever listen to his side? What kind of father are you when you have more than enough power to handle this? Yet you let your child take the loss. Adrian frowned. Kids need to learn how to take losses. The elders said taking a loss is a blessing. I laughed out loud. So you know the Cardiff family is full of leeches, yet you are willing to take losses, and even drag your son into it to enjoy your blessing. Then take a bigger loss. Transfer all your assets to me. I guarantee that blessing will be huge. He went speechless. I turned to my blonde quail. And what about you? Want to take a loss too? Hand your savings to your mother. The boy shook his head so fast it was a blur and backed away. That blessing is yours, Mom. I will pass. I smiled politely. Then I passed too. I looked back at Adrian with the kind of gaze that screamed, I am waiting for you to slap yourself. Ethan also looked up at his father, sounding even more sincere than I did. Dad, why not give it to me now? It is mine in the end anyway. If you give it early, you get the blessing early. I burst into laughter. Adrian ground his teeth and rubbed the boy's head. Touching that blonde hair felt like grabbing a stiff brush. I cannot give you the family fortune, but I can sponsor you some money to refresh that color. Ethan looked a little disappointed, but he still nodded. Fine. But remember, Dad, whenever you want your blessing early, call me. I was still laughing when Adrian suddenly changed expression. His eyes turned cold and sharp, scanning me like an X-ray. After a long silence, he said a sentence that made my spine go cold. You are not Vivian Bai. Tell me, who are you? My smile vanished instantly. Great, I got cocky. I slipped, I exposed myself. But then I thought, maybe it was fine. Fake things get exposed sooner or later anyway. I took a deep breath and told the truth. I do not understand what happened either. I only know that when I opened my eyes, I was already here. I never believed I could fool you. You went from nothing to the top in just a few years. The only reason you gave me any face today was because of your son. And I do not even know who Vivian Bai was as a person. I only guessed from scattered comments. You were going to notice I was different sooner or later. So the only thing I can do now is be honest and hope it buys me a way to survive. Adrian showed no emotion. He just listened quietly until I finished. I stood there waiting, like I was waiting for a verdict, the ending to all my anxious days. And then he chuckled softly and said, So you really did run out of money. I nearly choked. So, this is the moment you ask that. I cleared my throat and pretended to be calm. Yeah, that is not wrong. Adrian took out a sleek black card, the kind I had only ever seen in ruthless CEO dramas, and placed it in my hand. No limit. From now on, it is yours. I stood frozen, but my hand was brutally honest and closed around it as if it might fly away. Then he asked, "Are you free this afternoon?" I nodded on instinct. "I am free." He said simply, "Stay home. Someone will come to arrange legal registration for you." I froze again. Only a tycoon family could process a new identity like flipping a page. But I still asked, "You give me the card and the documents. What do I have to pay?" Adrian paused for a moment, then spoke as if discussing the weather. "I have a proposal. Nina Fan, will you continue being Ethan's stepmother?" My heart pounded, because that was my real name. I lowered my head and stared at the black card that suddenly felt burning hot in my palm. "Is that the condition for me to receive the card and the legal papers?" Adrian smiled again and said, "Of course not. That has nothing to do with it. Before you decide, you have to push those two things out of your mind, the card and the papers. I need an answer that is honest and not tied to any motive, because lately I do not really feel like enjoying any blessings anymore." Adrian gritted his teeth and stressed the words, "enjoying blessings," like he was still salty about me telling him to transfer all his assets. And I couldn't help laughing, but he continued in a steady voice. "I think you raise him better than I do. Consider this a request from a father." I suddenly remembered my own kid. Sometimes a puffed-up hedgehog, sometimes a shy little quail, sometimes a surprise cannonball who would jump in front of me without thinking. And the image made me laugh again. Then I answered without hesitation, "Fine, I agree. And let me make it clear. Nina Fan is Ethan Carter's stepmother. And if anyone dares to say otherwise, I will fight them to the end." "Mom, does my new hair look good?" Right after I put away the household registration book with Nina Fan printed on it, my golden disaster sprinted over like he was showing off a trophy. His already faded blonde had been refreshed into something so bright it could blind a camera. Still the same legendary dusty yellow, sitting on his head like a crown. "It looks good, right? Right? Right." He spun around me, proud as anything. "I spent a lot of money. I even told them to use the best dye so it will not fade fast." My eyes practically begged to shut themselves down. And when he saw my expression, he pouted. "Not good, Mom. You are lying to kids. You said it was good before." Seeing him wilt like a crushed flower, I lied again to protect his fragile soul. "My baby looks good no matter what color he dyes." Adrian stood nearby watching us and snorted loudly on purpose. I shot him a sharp look and pulled my golden menace a little farther away. "And you, little traitor, you would not lend me your secret stash, and now you are planning to compete with me for the inheritance too." My kid glanced at his father in the distance, then leaned in and whispered, "Mom, be fair. I am doing this to increase your odds. If you have me on your side, we have an advantage. And when we finally get it, I will not forget you." I was instantly satisfied, so our time together has not been wasted. "Then, if Dad leaves you money later, you will share with me, right?" He nodded like he was signing a contract. "Of course. I planned it. We split it half and half." I made a dramatic little sound like I was touched. "I am not everything to you." He immediately got flustered and lowered his voice. "That might not work. I am afraid I cannot even afford to raise myself." "Fair point." I smiled politely. "Good. Remember this. Only what you hold in your own hands is truly yours." Adrian's reputation worked like a protective charm. Even though Ethan kept his trademark dusty blonde, no teacher dared to label dyed hair as a sign of society's trash. No one dared to call him broke, and nobody dared to talk about cleaning the family name anymore. Ethan was still mischievous in an age-appropriate way, but his grades climbed little by little. And when he got serious and stubborn, he looked exactly like his father. Everything felt like it was finally settling down. But I never expected that after a long stretch of peace, on a bright, sunny noon, the school called me in again. and for no clear reason, a strange unease stabbed my chest. I even urged Adrian to drive faster. He teased me. "What is it? Has it been so long since the last parent meeting that you're excited now?" I glared. "No, I just feel restless." Adrian's face turned serious, but his tone stayed calm. "Do not worry. That kid has learned plenty of self-defense. An ordinary person might not even be his match." He was right. I was the one who made Ethan train. And I even taught him that if he ever fights, hit where it hurts, but do not leave visible marks so the other side cannot grab evidence. For years, he trained like clockwork every single day. You could say he was qualified to be a professional bodyguard, and it would not be an exaggeration. Yet my heart still would not settle. When we reached the school field, I saw a crowd forming a circle, and from far away, I could already hear teachers shouting in panic. "Ethan, stop! Ethan, stop!" I shoved my way in, and the scene in front of me was chaos. Ethan had a bigger boy pinned to the ground and was punching him like a storm, every hit thrown with full force, using the exact movements I had seen him practice. After a long time, the floating comments finally appeared again, and I looked up on instinct, hoping they would give me something useful. "What is going on? Why is he so violent? What did you expect? Blonde heads never bring anything good." Finally, we can comment again. But there are so many new readers here. Definitely new readers. Long-time fans would never trash the blonde hair. Everyone knows he only likes that dusty yellow. His personality is nothing like those stereotypical blonde punks. But what actually happened? Why is he hitting so hard? Does anyone know the details? Probably no one knows. Ever since the tyrant stepmom dragged him to a new school and even went sack ambushing at night, the plot already veered off the original. In the original, every parent meeting meant the stepmom exploded at the blonde hair. Who would have guessed it would turn into this? I also think we might lose the ability to comment again soon. Everyone post while you can. Ethan was like a wild horse with a snapped rein. Nobody could hold him back. And when I stepped closer, I finally heard the boy under him, weak but still forcing arrogance through his teeth. "Even if you beat me to death, your stepmom is still trash. And she is not even your real mom. She is possessed by something." Ethan's eyes were red, like a machine gone out of control. His fist kept dropping again and again, and he screamed hoarsely, "You are lying. Nina Fan is my mom." I could not stop him, and right then a teacher rushed in like he had found salvation and shouted, "Ethan, your dad is here." Ethan still did not stop, and then somewhere in the crowd, someone suddenly yelled a single sentence that tore the air wide open. Someone suddenly shouted like a lifesaver in the storm, "Ethan, your stepmom is here." His fist, raised high, froze for half a beat. The teacher seized the chance to pull the two boys apart, and only then did I see the blood on Ethan's forehead and the dark bruise spreading across his stomach. I called him softly, "Ethan." He heard me, turned his head, and flashed a huge grin like he had just won a war. I rushed in to catch him. He sagged against my shoulder, breathing hard, yet his voice still carried that stubborn pride. "Mom, I did exactly what you taught me. I only hit places that would not leave visible marks. It hurt a lot too. I was just not patient enough. I could not wait until night to use a sack. Do not be mad, okay? Sorry for making you lose face again." My heart clenched at the way he was clearly in pain, but still trying to act fine. But I did not let it show, because on the other side, the boy was screaming from pain, while my face stayed cold as ice, my hand pressing firmly into points no one could see. Compared to the wounds on Ethan's head and stomach, that little pain meant nothing. The other boy bawled and shouted, "I was wrong, I was wrong. I just did not like Ethan, so I tried to provoke him into hitting me." Adrian had already gotten the full story. He turned and spoke in a short, icy tone. That kid used to be the top student at this school. Since Ethan surpassed him, he felt his place was stolen. Everything he has, Ethan has too. Everything he does not have, Ethan still has more of. So he convinced himself Ethan was targeting him on purpose. I nearly ran out of words. Then another student beside us, timid and shaking, added more. This morning, the school announced Ethan won a national award in a big competition. We saw he was happy. So we asked why he never changed his hair color after so many years. Ethan said his stepmom thinks it looks good. That is when the other guys started mocking him. Ethan ignored it. But he kept getting worse. He insulted everything. School stuff, family stuff, even dragged out ancestors to humiliate him. Called his stepmom a homewrecker and worse. The language was filthy. And he did not just talk. He hit first. Adrian's voice dropped to a level so cold, it made everyone's skin crawl. He used a rock and smashed Ethan's head first. Then he used words to push it into a fight. And in the end, he pulled out a knife. My grip tightened, as if I wanted to nail each word into him. This was not childish rivalry anymore. This was attempted murder. I stared straight at the boy and smiled thinly. You think the law will protect you because you are not 18 yet. Then you are going to be disappointed. Before you acted, why did you not learn who the Lin family is? Age on documents can be adjusted by a few months. His face went pale for real. He stammered, You cannot do that. That is illegal. I looked at him with pure contempt. Crushing unstable trash like you with power is called preventing danger for society, and you still dream of being number one. Look in the mirror and see what you are. A piece like you is not even worth half of Ethan's little finger. He should thank Ethan for being lucky enough to survive. If he had not, I would have made him wish you were dead. And I will be honest. He turns 18 in 2 months. If I want to drag this case past that line, it is not hard for me at all. After Ethan's wounds were treated and he finally woke up, the first thing he said was, Mom, I am sorry. I rubbed his hair, where a patch had been shaved for stitches. You have nothing to apologize for. You were brave. You were my brave kid who stood up to protect me. He grinned brightly, then winced the moment he moved and the wound pulled. Watching him still so alive and stubborn made me laugh too. Thank goodness. My dusty blonde boy was still here with me. Time passed. Ethan's hair finally grew back the way he wanted, and on the same day he came running home with his dream university acceptance letter. He blurted out, Mom, I want to dye my hair. I took advantage of the rare moment when it was soft and black again, ran my fingers through it, and asked casually, What color this time? He smiled. If you think it looks good, then any color is fine. My first instinct was to say silver, but when I met his bright eyes, my words changed on their own. My baby is handsome enough that any color will look good. He laughed and still found time to tease me. Really? Then I will dye it back to the old color first. You have been looking at it for years, so I will keep it for years too. It cannot possibly be wrong. I almost blurted out the truth. That dusty yellow had been wrong from the beginning. That anyone who dyed it looked like a street punk, even my precious kid, but I did not dare. If I said it, I would be confessing that I had been lying to him for years. So I forced a smile and said, Sure, as long as you are happy. Ethan laughed out loud and said, No amount of gold can buy what I like, Mom. Then one day, his voice arrived before his body at the door. Mom, I am home. Pretty, pretty. He was the same as when he was little. Every time he dyed his hair, he would spin around me until he got the answer he wanted. I spent a lot of money. I used only the best products. I was about to answer out of habit, but my eyes caught something unfamiliar, and I looked up. And when I saw that silver gray hair catching light like mist, My throat tightened, for real. Ethan looked at me, smiling a little nervously. Mom, is it not good? I looked at that hopeful smile and answered softly, my voice suddenly thick. It is beautiful. He immediately made a small triumphant sound and said, I knew you would like this color. Then he pouted and added, you always lie to me anyway. I protested at once. I do not lie. He narrowed his eyes, half believing, half doubting. Really? I nodded firmly. Really. He went quiet for 1 second, then said calmly, like lightning, then I will go dye it back to the old color. I am not used to this one yet. I grabbed his hand right away. Do not dye it again. Dyeing too often will ruin your hair. When it is damaged, regret will be too late. Ethan fought for a few seconds, then shrugged and gave in. Fine, I will keep it for a while longer. Little brat. I stood there watching his back as he walked away, and a strange emptiness opened in my chest. Time really does run like a thief. The child who used to be a head shorter than me had somehow grown taller, broader, and when he stood beside me, I felt smaller without even realizing it. Mom. Ethan turned and called out, come eat, I am starving. I pulled my drifting emotions back into place and laughed. Coming. And in that exact moment, from an angle I could not see, the final comments appeared slowly, closing the long story like the final scene of a film. The story of the sharp-mouthed, soft-hearted stepmom and her trademark blonde son ends here. In another parallel world, their family will continue living happily. May each of us find a life that is warm enough, loved enough, and fulfilled in our own way. Thank you for listening to today's story. I truly treasure your comments, feedback, and thoughts. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. And I will see you in the next story.